Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again, and I wouldn't usually start a video off like that, but the satisfaction of Infernal Blow has to be heard as well as seen, because the explosions, the pops, the just absolute carnage of Infernal Blow is truly satisfying in the sound as much as it is visually. So truly, Infernal Blow has been quite a lot of fun to play. Once you get Ancestral Call and Melee Splash attached to it, you can see that you get quite a lot of additional explosions and hits, and it becomes a really nice clear skill. For the most part, you are seeing me use Automaton Herald effect with Herald of Ash, and it does help clean a few extra stragglers up a bit, but you could see at the start of the video that without any Herald whatsoever, the Infernal Blow explosion is actually pretty cool by itself as well, just instant disintegration. However, Herald of Ash with basically whatever Herald effect you want does look really nice, but the Herald does actually help clean packs up a bit too. So we are using Herald of Ash for a bit of extra fire scaling and that additional clear speed, but Infernal Blow just by itself is actually really satisfying too, so you don't even have to have any sort of micros for this satisfaction guaranteed, in my opinion. Now this character I've built is a Jug Marauder. It is going to be a little bit similar to the Double Strike Champion in that it is still physical scaling and then a bunch of crit sword nodes, except this time around it is two-hand crit swords, it is a Jug, and it is utilizing Abyssus. So there are a few differences there, and I also want to play around with Lacerate a bunch as well to see just how well Lacerate could do up to the end game, and so far I've been pretty impressed with it. It does compete with Infernal Blow on clear speed once it gets completely ramped up. It just takes quite a while for you to level the gem, get all of the radius, all of the attack speed, the damage, and then also all of your ascendancies to actually make Lacerate feel good. But when it does, it is a very competitive skill, I'd say, at this point, and overall probably going to be a stronger contender for this character than Infernal Blow. But Infernal Blow is just so much more fun to map with right now for those pops and the visuals that I'm mapping with Infernal Blow all the way through to like 90s or so, and only lacerating when I really think I need to, because it will be a stronger AoE skill, a bit less melee, and overall should have much better single target, especially when paired with the boys, aka our double strike or Val double strike setup, which currently not entirely necessary or needed to be used, but it is really just one of those situations where you'd kind of be dumb not to use Val double strike in a melee and attack-based, or rather physical-based setup. So I'm going to have to be using that for the end game, but for now you can see that Lacerate cleans up quite nicely at this tier map with just a Terminus Est weapon, which is a pretty basic level 51 two-hand unique sword, and there's nothing really to say you have to use two-handers in this build. I just really wanted to make a two-handed build, especially with a Terminus Est as a nice baseline weapon, and then just use a Dancing Dervish skin over the top because I really like the look of that sword. So overall, this is what the character plays like. A bunch of leap slamming, bunch of exploding, and it's been pretty efficient. I've gotten to level 89 now, well, almost 89, just by doing these mid-tier, yellow maps at level 80s and up to 88, and been rocking something like 300 to 400 million XP an hour. It's been incredibly fast, and like I said, there's nothing to say you have to play this just like this with a Terminus, two-handers. You can easily go dual wield, you can go one-handers, and it's probably going to be a lot faster and a lot more effective even just by the nature of dual wielding and Shaper stat sticks right now. For the most part, I just want to show you the viability of Jug when paired with an Abyssus, as well as what Infernal Blow looks like, because I'd say currently it's got to be one of the most satisfying skills out there to play. It's a lot more intense of a popping than your Hemophilias or your Impulses. The actual sound it gives off is far louder, far bassier, and does lend itself to a lot better clear for those pops if you scale around them. However, my character is basically just a generic sort of two-hand character so that I can both run Lacerate and Infernal Blow at decent sort of effectiveness. So I do want to run down the character for you guys and show you how I've built it thus far. So the character is currently a level 88 Jug Marauder called Wet Paper Jug, if you want to look him up, almost level 89. And the magic all happens with Infernal Blow attached to an Ancestral Call and Melee Splash. So you can get this sort of ability and setup going pretty early on, level 12, and it should start clearing pretty nicely, though it's not really going to come into its own until it gets a lot more area from the Melee Splash, and then ultimately a lot more pack size to really actually explode a lot of things. But Infernal Blow by itself has got a bit of a rework, and it does now do an additional explosion based off of 66% of your damage per charge that it attaches to an enemy, up to 6 charges. Once it attaches 6 charges, it then explodes and helps with single target a bit. It's still not really that impressive on single target, but it is better than it used to be, so it's still usable. But paired with your War Chief and your Val Double Strike, it is fine to use as a standalone skill, but it's mostly there for clear speed, and it's really nice for clear when you have Melee Splash and Ancestral Call. And as you may have noticed throughout the videos, I don't even use multi-strike right now. So currently my other gem links are damage on full life and melee physical damage, because I don't need multi-strike when, for the most part, I'm jumping into a pack, hitting it once, and it explodes. If you start running multi-strike as well, you only really need it when you have shitter damage and you need to take a lot more hits into a pack. But at this stage with my Terminus Est, I don't really need to run multi-strike, and that's more of a single target gem. So I'm got it sitting here just in case, and then I sub out Ancestral Call for the single targets in this type of a skill setup. But at the moment, haven't been using it. It's kind of up to you if you really need to, though. Feel free to play around with it instead of, let's say, a damage on full life support, because for the most part, your 4-link is going to be Melee Fizz, Infernal Blow, Melee Splash, Ancestral Call, and then chuck in other things like multi-strike, weapon LE damage, etc., wherever you need. But at the moment, that's my 4-link to 5-link, and then I've got a separate 5-link on the Terminus Est running with Double Strike and Vile Double Strike, Ancestral War Chief, Maim, Melee Fizz, and damage on full life. So it's a dual purpose 5-link that gives 2 different skills a 4-link, and that's both just additional single target sort of setups. And the entire build is based around the Jug. So we have a bunch of accuracy and a bunch of extra attack speed from that. A lot of armor and damage reduction from this node if you have a good armor, which I'm repurposing from the Double Strike Champion. And then of course, some really easy to gain endurance charges and additional area from these endurance charges. So we get 35% extra area because I have spec'd into some endurance charges here, get a bonus one there, and a bonus one from Comb's Roots with a +1 maximum endurance charge. So I get seven endurance charges pretty much all of the time. That makes us a lot tankier and also gives us quite a lot of extra area and damage. And then that means that we have to basically shoehorn a Abyssus into the build, because basically, for me, if you're going to build a Jug, I think it needs to have an Abyssus, because you don't really get too much damage from the passives at all. They're just really defensive, but you do get a lot of extra accuracy, which makes crit pretty damn easy and viable, and thus getting an Abyssus into the build with all the extra defense is just a no-brainer. Now, I didn't actually run an Abyssus until about level 85, 84, so you can easily go without it, but for the end game, for the real end game damage, I think Abyssus is kind of just required. And it's one of the only situations where you won't really feel it too often for the increased damage taken, because with Jug, with all the extra armor and shit that you have, and the Fortify and Endurance charges, you do end up being quite tanky, and you don't really notice the downside of Abyssus too much. So I do recommend shoving an Abyssus into a Jug setup, or building a Jug around an Abyssus setup, whichever way you really want to look at it. And the reason a build like this is fairly strong is that Terminus Est is a really nice weapon for large amounts of crit, large amounts of attack speed, and kind of average fizz. So with the large crit and attack speed, it synergizes perfectly with an Abyssus to give you lots of extra flat fizz and crit multi, and then that means that your weapon, which is anywhere from 1 to 10 chaos, can very well be an endgame weapon. Now, I have been trying to and will be trying to craft a strong exquisite blade, but bear in mind that looking at the numbers and how it pans out, a good two-handed crit sword needs to be something like 450 to 500 DPS to outscale a Terminus Est, and it's pretty hard to craft one of those, so it's going to cost you several exalts to get a weapon like that, or a Terminus Est for, you know, a few chaos. Just try and get high crit, high physical damage, and it's a really strong starting weapon, and once you start getting abysses, it gets into the end game scaling as well. Besides that, just a bit of accuracy and physical damage on the rest of the gear, bit of crit multi, some attack speed, nothing else too special going on. This mana leech over here is where I get my mana sustain from at the moment, but if you can't get anything on your gear, then just grab a single node into mana leech over here. However, I used a Praxis ring from level 20 to 85, to be perfectly honest. I used it for that long, and that takes care of all of your mana, and the rest of the passive tree is just getting life and some various accuracy and crit sword nodes and all that. It's pretty basic, I think, but the combo here that we're talking about is Infernal Blow, and if you really truly want to build around Infernal Blow for all the additional fire and explosion damage and all that, you're probably building a tree more in line with LE damage nodes, some penetration over here, and probably even some actual damage conversion, which can come from the new gloves that have a conversion damage node, or an Anger Watcher's Eye that will then convert some of your fire damage and just really heavily scale fire damage. So this isn't by any means the only way to build Infernal Blow, or even how you should build Infernal Blow. This is more of a just can do it all character, which can really basically play any melee skill with swords, that is, with two-hand weapons. And in this case, I'm running Lacerate and Infernal Blow. Can do plenty of others though, because it's generic enough. You're just trying to grab some attack speed, jewels with crit multi, as you can see here. That's all of my jewels, just generic crit multi, generic attack speed. And it should work out with just about any skill, just about any setup. And for clear, it's probably going to be just a very fun, strong character. For the end game, not quite sure yet. I will most likely be able to take on all of the Guardians and Shaper. As far as Uber Elder is concerned, that's kind of a different thing altogether, and we'll see how we go, but I may need to get some actual leech into the build as opposed to just Blood Rage, and maybe some different survivability as well. Currently though, you can see I'm running Herald of Ash, Arctic Armor, and a Blasphemy Assassin's Mark. That's the entirety of my reservation. You can do some other things like Hatred. You can go dual wield, like I said, and start running an offhand with a bunch of extra physical damage to elemental damage. But this is the template, so if you want to follow it, I'll chuck it up as a path of building and onto the forum thread, which I now have a new one of. So feel free to look at that for build ideas and all that. But for now, guys, that's the character. It's just a lot of fun to Infernal Blow. Maybe I'll have another video up about bossing and all that in the next one. Though for now, guys, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and see you next time.